Hey, y'all, coming up at Roland Unfiltered for Wednesday, May 15, 2019. All kinds of drama in Alabama. They're poised to pass the most restrictive abortion ban in the country. The Republican-controlled and male-dominated legislature voted to make abortion illegal in all cases. Unless the mother's life is in danger, you could get in prison up to 99 years. We'll talk about that with one of the state officials who was against it. The real culprits in the NCAA recruiting trials get a pass while black assistant coaches took the fall. We'll discuss that as well. And his name wasn't even Quentin. A case of mistaken identity in Texas gets ugly when police racially profile a man in his own front yard. The nut from Westboro Baptist Church plan to protest at Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark-Atlanta University. The church is identified as a hate group of the Southern Poverty Law Center and monitored by the FBI. Plus, what it means to be a moral man. We'll talk with the author of a new book on that subject. And I got a crazy-ass white woman who's running for mayor of Denver. She don't even know what the hell the NAACP stands for. Wait until I show y'all this video. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, Alabama being Alabama, well, the Senate approved a measure late on Tuesday that would outlaw almost all abortions in the state, setting up a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade, the case that recognized a woman's constitutional right to end a pregnancy. It was by design. The person who crafted the bill said that was exactly what he wanted. Republicans, conservatives, white conservative evangelicals have been pining for years for the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. Now, with 5 Supreme Court justices who are conservative, they believe that this is the moment. This measure, only 3 women had a vote in the legislature. On the Republican side, there are no women at all in the legislature. Here is Senator Vivian Figures, who is questioning Senator Clyde Chambliss about this bill. Lord, listen to this white man not be able to answer a question. All right, we got some issues with the audio, so guys, please let me know once we have that fixed, because I would love for y'all to hear her questioning Chambliss. Actually, it was a trip because here you got a man who cannot answer the question at all, and there was a late moment where they tried to actually have an addendum to say in the case of rape or incest to allow a woman to have an abortion. In Alabama, they said no. They actually said no. That's what you're dealing with, folks, in the state of Alabama. Henry, go to my iPad, please.
Say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Committee amendment is tabled. Senator Chambliss.
There was no motion. There was no motion.
There was a motion. He made a motion.
He didn't even make a motion, Mr. President.
Hold on, excuse me.
He did not make a motion.
Now, folks, this was last week. That video was from last week when they were trying to actually push this thing through. And there was in a committee hearing where they didn't even want any debate whatsoever. That's what they actually tried to do last week. But this week, they've actually moved forward and passed it. Do we have the video now where the audio is fixed? Okay, so we're still having audio issues. And so let me see if I can find what Vivian had to say. Give me a second here. I want to bring in our panel right here, first and foremost, to talk about this here. First of all, let me explain to you that the bill bans abortion at every stage of pregnancy and criminalizes the procedure for doctors who could be charged with felonies and face up to 99 years in prison. It includes an exception for cases when the mother's life is at serious risk but not for cases of rape or incest. It now moves to the desk of Republican Governor Kay Ivey. The question is, will she actually sign it? Joining us right now, A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association Political Action Committee, Julian Malveaux, economist, president emerita, Bennett College, Dr. Jason Nichols, African American Studies, University of Maryland. Julian, when you look at this, I mean, again, white conservatives have been desperately wanting the Supreme Court to outlaw Roe v. Wade. This bill, the one in Ohio, the one in Georgia, they're passing these all across the state, all across the country, because they want the Supreme Court to rule, because they think by having Gorsuch, by having Kavanaugh, Alito, Roberts, and Thomas, that they now can overturn Roe v. Wade.
Well, first of all, Roberts is a very conservative jurist. Conservative from the perspective that he's not going to overturn. I don't think he will overturn Roe v. Wade. Remember, he is the jurist who sided with Obamacare. He moves slowly on things. I think that...
well, for him, all of a sudden, become the swing vote is scary. But go ahead.
It is very scary. But
vote.
he is the swing vote. And the other thing, I mean, protest theater hit high art when those women went just like the Handmaid's Tale with the red on. And, you know, it really it does speak to this. What these folks are trying to do is control the means of production. And the means of production in terms of population are women. The other thing that we must think about is that these are the same states that have the highest poverty rates. So if you're so interested in having children come here, how come you're not interested in having food stamps and Medicare and all the things that children need to thrive? These people are hypocrites and they're crazy, but they have a strategy.
Hold on one second. It looks like we have the video fixed. So let's go ahead. I want to show you what the senator had to say as this was being debated on the floor of the Alabama Senate.
Well, do you know what it's like to be raped?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Do you know what it's like to have a relative commit incest on you?
On me, no, ma'am.
Yes, on you. Okay. So that's one of those traumas that a person experiences, just like that child experienced. And to take that choice away from that person who had such a traumatic act committed against them, to be left with the residue of that person, if you will, to have to bring that child into this world and be reminded of that every single day. Some people can do that. You know, some people can, but some can't.
Sure.
So, but why would you not want a woman to at least have that exception for such a horrific act?
Because I believe that when that unborn child becomes a person, and we need legal guidance on when that is.
But that's not your business. That is not your business. You don't have to raise that child. You don't have to carry that child. You don't have to provide for that child. You don't have to do anything for that child. But yet, you want to make the decision for that woman that that's what she has to do.
I want to make the decision for that child.
Well, Senator, you know there is no law in this country on the books that says what a man can or cannot do with his body. Did you know that? And it's really amazing that when you talk about abortion, that means somebody is pregnant. But guess how that woman got pregnant? By a man. She can't get pregnant any other way.
All right, Scott, again, when you listen to that, and you listen to all of these white men stand in the Alabama Senate.
There were many.
And they were all white.
All white.
And to her point, look, it's not like they're advancing a bill to say let's have statewide vasectomies in Alabama.
Not at all. God forbid that. Controlling or making a decision on a man's body. Whew. Let me say this. The Republicans always... Another great hypocrisy of the Republicans is they want all these children to be born rightfully or wrongfully, and then when they get here, those red states who get more government entitlement than anybody else, then they complain about government entitlement. They want to cut the government entitlement to the children that they're forcing these women to have. I mean, it's hypocrisy. But the other thing is this. You're right about getting to the Supreme Court, but in the 11th Circuit, I think we're in the 11th Circuit, you got to go, somebody's going to file a lawsuit, and then it's got to go to the 11th Circuit, and then it's got to go to the Supreme Court. It may not make it there, despite the number of conservatives that are in these lower courts, but watch what happens at the Supreme Court. They want the denouement. They want the showdown, if you will. This law is as restrictive as the pre-Wade laws were in the 40s, 50s, and part of the 60s. And so they're going to get their showdown, whoever the president is. This is why the election in 2020 becomes even more important, because you had these Supreme Court justices who may or may not still be there, but only 15%, Roland, 15% roughly of America believes that we need the abortion laws changed in this country. The other Republican and Democrats think they're just fine, or they need to be even less restrictive.
But Jason, the reality is it doesn't matter. Republicans don't care about that polling data. They want this law overturned. The reason they were so supportive of Donald Trump, two things. Well, actually three things. They want Roe v. Wade overturned, they want same-sex marriage overturned, and they want most civil rights laws overturned.
Absolutely. And I would actually add a little bit to what Julian said, and that is that Alabama is number 2 in the nation in infant mortality. So if you're concerned with the lives of children, you know, why not the children that are actually born that are dying in your state? Almost 9 out of every 1,000 live births. So obviously that's not really the concern here. It is about, as Scott said, it is about controlling women's bodies, making decisions for them. And I would also say that this also, you know, it's all a windfall from, you know, voter suppression. We know that 1/3 of the African-American men in the state of Alabama cannot vote due to a felony conviction. You know, you have all these issues with trying to keep black people from voting. And we know that black people, I think, would be on the front lines.
The bill is about keeping black people from voting. By making them have all these babies.
No, it's
I like it, kind of.
Actually, hold tight. Hold on. I want to go take Senator Linda Coleman Madison, who joins us via FaceTime. Senator Coleman Madison, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
So what was it like to stand there on the floor and you're listening to all these men talk about this issue? To what Jason just said, if Alabama's number 2 in the nation with infant mortality, they don't want to address that. They don't want to address the health care in Alabama, don't want to address the economics in Alabama, but they want to spend this amount of time on this issue.
We spend a lot of time on this issue. It comes up every year. I've been in the Senate for 17 years, and almost every year the same issue comes up. For several years, this bill was sponsored by the males in the Senate. And you get tired of fighting the same battle. But if people look at, and I've just received a note that the governor has just signed the bill.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a sad state. That is a sad state of affairs for the state of Alabama. And it says a lot to the whole world how far we have come, and yet how far that we have taken a back step by this one act of redefining the rights of women. Defining and eliminating choices for women, not only this generation, but future generations. So it's just sad. You have a majority-held legislature held by men that are making decisions that govern the bodies of women and their health and welfare.
When we played the video of one of your colleagues challenging one of the male Republicans and saying, have you ever been raped? And why should the person that carried that baby? And for him to say, I care about the baby, let's just cut to the chase. You know doggone well, if somebody black or somebody Hispanic raped one of their daughters, no, I'm gonna go there. Ain't no way in hell. Ain't no way they're saying, "Oh yeah, we gonna love this child. We gonna carry the baby." That's nonsense.
We're having that black baby.
Yeah. Senator, go ahead.
You're absolutely right, and that's the point that I was making. You can't tell me that you are making these laws. If this happened to your wife, your child, your mother, you're going to pass a law and say that it's okay. We're going to love this child. We're going to keep it. You're going to have it because the law that you passed now, that you have placed and forced upon everyone else, you've got the means and the wherewithal and the connection to go to another state and get an abortion. This is history repeating itself.
Obviously, they want the Supreme Court to rule on this. The sponsor said that's why he even pushed the bill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The House sponsor, it really isn't about the life of the baby or the sanctity of life. It's about reversing Roe v. Wade. That's what they said. They understood this bill is unconstitutional. That is not the issue with them. They want to be the one to get to the top of the hill, plant that flag, and said it was Alabama that caused a reversal of Roe v. Wade.
Last question for you. I was watching the discussion on The View, and Meghan McCain was talking about how she is ardently pro-life, and Sonny Hostin was talking about her being raised Catholic, also being an attorney, and she says, well, the Catholic Church, Meghan goes, well, the Catholic Church is absolutely pro-life, and she says, yeah, but they also are pro-gun control, and they also anti-death penalty. So that's what amazes me when I listen to these people who say that they're so pro-life, but they are some of the biggest supporters of the death penalty.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm pro-life, but quite frankly, my rights stop where yours began. And although I have my own convictions, I would not demand or force my feelings, my convictions, my beliefs, my religion on anyone else. I will tell you about it and give you that choice. I think all women should have that choice. This bill was not necessary, number one, because if a woman wants to have the child, she has that choice to have it now. But I don't think that you have the right to force me to have one when I choose not to. So what you've done is injected your own faith or beliefs or whatever on me. I have no choice. You have taken away my voice.
Senator Linda Coleman Madison, we really appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Final round discussion here before we go to my next story. Again, what is interesting to me is when I see this whole conversation, they don't want to have a discussion about the economics of how much women make in that state. They don't want to have a conversation about rural hospitals shutting down in Alabama. Yeah. They don't want to have a conversation about high cancer rates and things along those lines. And so my deal is, if y'all want to have a medical conversation, if you want to have a healthcare conversation, let's have it. Yes. But to somehow say, let's narrow this thing just to abortion, it shows that they don't want to deal with these other issues.
Precisely. Well, my line is, look, if you don't like abortion, don't have one. I don't know how many the Orange Man has paid for. So that, just saying. But more importantly, this is a tax on poor women. This is an imposition on poor women. Any person with means, you got $1,000, you can go to the next state, you can come up north, you can go, people used to have to go to Mexico. So, but women who are on limited incomes or making the minimum wage, they don't have those kind of dollars. And basically, they will end up with children that they don't want. Now, let's not jump the gun. This is going to be appealed. They want to go to the Supreme Court. It's going to be appealed. It won't go into effect immediately. But this is something of great concern, especially for poor women, and many poor women, a disproportionate number, are poor women of color. So this is really, a black tax.
And again, for me, Scott, this is okay. So again, if we want to have a discussion about abortion and have a discussion about the issue of life, okay, we're going to talk about resources. We're going to talk about Head Start. We're going to talk about all those things, and that, to me, is what they never want to deal with.
Because they can't win that debate. They can't win that discussion. And so, therefore, they avoid it. Look what the GOP does in the House and Senate over the last 2 years. They just don't debate it. They just don't want to import their will on it. This is a rallying cry. Look for coalitions of civil rights and human rights groups, women groups, and others to coalesce around this issue now and make the push against the courts upholding this clearly illegal law. The precedent on this, they've got to honor. The courts do. And so if the courts strike it down, the appeal process will run its course, and it'll run to the Supreme Court. And the coalitions have got to have the best and the brightest and the largest push against what promises to be a big GOP push for this same debate. The fight's going to end and begin, the real fight, at the Supreme Court. And so we ought to stay tuned for that.
And Jason, before Henry, go to my iPad, please. In fact, Alabama is number 1 in the country for infant mortality. Number 1. Go ahead.
Yeah. So,
and where are they for entitlements? Right. I wish you pulled that up. They're one of the top
and poverty.
Go ahead.
Where are they with
poverty?
I'll just say, you look at places like Uniontown, Alabama, where they have terrible environmental racism that is actually claiming lives of not only young people but older people and other people. If you're concerned with life, and not only that, but when we're looking at these laws, I don't think anybody would call themselves pro-abortion. But when you look at these laws, they're actually going to create a black market and put a lot of people in danger. So I don't think people are going to drive to Mexico. I think what they're going to do is somebody's going to do some dangerous process in their house, which is going to put a lot of women in danger. You're going to have people who are dying because of this even more. But the people in Alabama, the people at the top, the Republicans, they don't care about who dies and who lives, particularly when it comes to women.
All right, then. And so, folks, we will see exactly what happens. And this is go to my iPad, please. This is the governor of Alabama signing that law. And she said, today I signed into law the Alabama Human Life Protection Act. To the bill's many supporters, this legislation stands as a powerful testament to Alabamians' deeply held belief that every life is precious and that every life is a sacred gift from God. But like I said, they support the death penalty. So what she said is a flat-out lie. All right, folks, let's talk about some sports here. We've been following the case of this federal government. They've been going after these assistant coaches in basketball for accepting bribes. And so there have been 10 arrests and 2 federal trials. And the question remains is, are the folks who did wrong going to jail? Now, here's the deal. The assistant head coaches were working with sports manufacturers. Adidas is one of those companies, and so a couple of Adidas execs were arrested, and all the assistant coaches. Some of them have actually pled guilty. They had wiretaps as well. But here's what's interesting. Not a single head coach is on trial. Not one. Even though there are wiretaps where there are coaches who are on there talking about cutting deals to land major players. And so, who's getting all caught up? Who are the ones going to prison? Yes, the black assistant coaches. Jamal Murphy is a sports writer for Undefeated. They actually talked about this here. And Jamal is very interesting because Chuck Person, former NBA player, is one of those folks. Assistant coaches in Arizona and LSU, Auburn, a bunch of different schools have gotten caught up in this. And the coaches, the judge even ruled the coaches didn't have to testify. You and I both know no assistant coach can cut a deal to negotiate to bring a player unless that head coach is in on it.
That's right, as far as I've ever heard, for sure.
And
no,
go ahead.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just it's just a very sad situation especially for assistant coaches. 56% of the assistant coaches in Power 5 college basketball schools are black, but then only 17% of the head coaches are black. So it seems as if, these coaches are kind of being used to play in this dirty game of recruiting. And then, of course, we have the situation where, the entire business is basically, built on the backs of unpaid black labor playing the games. But then when things go wrong, the scapegoats turn out to be black men as well, even though hardly any of them are head coaches.
And again, following this, look at these convictions. You had the coach in LSU who they caught on wiretaps. He wouldn't talk to LSU. He got suspended. And then once they finally had a conversation, he came back. You got the guy, the head coach out at Arizona, the head coach in Kansas, Rick Pitino. He was forced out as well. You have these. And again, if anybody who understands athletics, first and foremost, no assistant coach decides we're going to go recruit a player. First of all, the head coach says, I want that guy. And then when you have head coaches who are on the tape, caught on tape talking about how much they actually have been giving, it says a lot. And one of the guys who was on trial, he talked about how this one coach was giving this top player at Arizona $10,000 a month.
Right. Yeah. One of the men who was convicted of this, Christian Dawkins, was actually just a runner for an agent, and he was trying to start his own NBA agency and where he would represent players. And he talked about it, that when he was working for an agent, that was his job, basically to pay players and stuff like that. So not only are they not going after the head coaches, who, like you say, assistant coaches can't do anything without the head coach's okay. I know some people will say, oh, well, the head coaches will tell the assistant coaches, just go find me the best players, and that's it. But there's no way that an assistant coach is gonna put the head coach in jeopardy like that without the head coach at least knowing what's going on. So that's not true. And not only were they not going after head coaches, but like I said before, we know that agents partake in this kind of activity, which used to be just NCAA violations, but now they've become criminal violations and legal violations, to where guys are being put in jail over this stuff. And it's just, like I said before, it's just sad that, 8 of 9 of the coaches or the runners that either were convicted or pleaded guilty were people of color. 7 of the 9 were black. So there's definitely some inequity there in terms of what ended up happening in the criminal justice system.
So Scott Bolden is over here whining. So what do you mean it's not true, Scott?
I don't whine.
You're whining.
I don't whine at all.
Oh, it's not true.
Say that.
Really?
No, that is not true. And since I'm a former prosecutor and I'm also a criminal defense attorney, let me shed light on a few things.
Come on.
One, a head coach talking on tape about committing a crime is not illegal. These runners and what have you paying students before they get to college is not a crime.
Actually, it is. No, it is illegal according to NCAA standards, and it's illegal according to the contract.
You're talking about them being in the NCAA. I'm talking about before they get to the NCAA, Roland. Before they get to the NCAA, paying a player in AAU or any other pre-college program is not illegal.
No, that's incorrect.
Let me say this.
No, Scott, Scott,
it's just not.
Scott, that is incorrect. The NCAA.
One more time, you want to argue with the lawyer on the panel.
Scott, the NCAA has, Scott, you're wrong.
Get there.
You're wrong.
Jason, get there.
Jamal, can you please explain to Scott how the NCAA has ruled a number, let me finish, a number of players to be ineligible because they accepted benefits prior to even coming to college. Jamal, go ahead.
Prior to being recruited for college.
I think both of you are correct in a way. I think
exactly.
It's definitely a violation. It's an NCAA violation to where the kid could get in trouble. The kid could have his eligibility taken away. So it's definitely something that will hurt the kid if it's found out, and it can hurt the schools as well. But it's technically not a crime here. Unless the reason they made it, they got these college coaches hemmed up on bribery charges is because that's where the crime was. The crime was the bribery charge that the runners were paying to the coaches.
And what I said is this:
they were saying that if you pay the players, it's still wrong and it's still a violation. But technically, the crime is that they paid the coaches.
And here's what I said. And here's what I said. And I did not say crime. What I'm speaking of is that in the contracts of these coaches, they are not to violate NCAA rules. They are not to also do anything that could get a university put on probation and have sanctions. And what I'm saying is not only have these coaches not been on trial, they also have not been penalized by their institutions. They still have their jobs, and they still are out there. In fact, the coach at LSU, who was implicated, he said, first of all, LSU said, we want you to come in and talk to us. He said no. They suspended him as LSU was going to play in the SEC tournament, NCAAs. He then later sat down and talked to LSU after a period of time. Then they allowed him to come back as head coach. What I'm saying is, you cannot convince me that the head coach at LSU was not aware that his assistant coaches were engaged in these activities and trying to recruit a player.
Let me convince you.
You cannot convince me that the coach at Arizona and the coach at Kansas and the coach at Louisville and the coach at Auburn. Jamal, go ahead, and then I'll go to Scott, then Jason. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can't convince me of that either. And
I can convince
it's one
both
thing
of you
to
all
say. It's one thing to say, maybe the school president didn't know, and maybe the AD didn't know. Maybe that they're looking more towards long-term in terms of, making sure that the school is profitable and that the team remains good. But the coaches themselves are more short term. There's no way an assistant coach is gonna put his head coach on the line. He's basically putting his head coach on the line by paying players. So he at least has to know either through sign language or something that it's okay that head coach is okay with him doing whatever it takes to get that job done.
And again, those of us who cover sports for years, those of us who know coaches, those of us who know players.
Those of us who know sports.
No, well, I don't know about that.
No, I know all about
those
sports.
Those of us who understand.
And I've represented my fair share.
Those of us who also worked in athletic departments know how this game is played. And so the bottom line is the black assistant coaches are taking a fall while these largely white head coaches are keeping their $3, $4, and $5 million salaries. And that's what's going on. Scott, go ahead.
The head coaches are smart. This is how they don't know. They don't want to know. I know the game, and I know the coaches, but they don't want to know. And it's smart for them not to want to know. Now,
even though you got some coaches who are on wiretaps.
Yeah, they can talk about a crime. Doesn't mean they're convicted of a crime. But wait a minute.
But they know about a crime.
Hold on, Jason, go ahead. I love this here.
Wait a minute. You didn't even let me finish.
Actually, I did let you finish.
You did not.
I want Jason to talk.
I'm trying to. I want to understand one thing. Scott.
What a show.
I want to understand one thing. So. By your, I don't want to say logic. By your,
because it ain't logical. But go ahead, Jason. Jason, go ahead.
If I were on tape saying, Roland, I want you to go shoot Scott, and then he shoots Scott, I'm not liable for a crime. I haven't committed a crime there. There's no conspiracy.
The subject we are talking about.
We haven't conspired in your death.
Without corroboration, the corroboration is that he went and shot me. My point is,
but they went and committed the crime.
No. It depends on what's on the tape.
So Roland, just shoot it.
If they're aware of it, doesn't make it a crime. But wait a minute.
But they talked about it.
Let's talk about something else that black people never want to talk about, right? 7 out of 9.
No, we're discussing this subject.
Okay, 7 out of 9 went to jail and therefore prosecuted, and therefore that's racial inequity. Well, wait a minute now. Why are those black people committing the crime? That's like being set up.
Why they commit the crime? Because the white coach wants the top player, Jamal.
Oh, so they don't have an independent right to not commit the crime.
Jamal, go ahead.
No one's saying they're not.
Hold up. Pipe down, Jamal. Go ahead.
If this is the business of college basketball, and we're all saying we know this goes on, it's also not. It's probably not just the 56% of the coaches who are black doing it. There'd probably be some white assistant coaches doing the same dirty stuff. Why aren't they being prosecuted?
We'll get to them. But here's the bottom line. Hold on.
Julian, no.
Why do the crime?
Julian, go ahead. Julian, go ahead.
Scott,
hold on. Julian, go ahead.
Scott is showing absurd ignorance of the labor market.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Yes, you are. Of the labor market.
Julian is talking.
You're going to jail.
Julian is talking.
The point is that these brothers want to keep their jobs, and so they're doing what they have to do to keep their job. If the head coaches are not telling
Julian, go ahead.
The head coaches are telling them, they're winking and nodding it, and the head coaches deserve liability as well. I need to see the challenge is head coaches need to be held responsible, athletic directors need to be held responsible, and university presidents need to be held responsible. I mean, if that were the case, this nonsense would stop.
And Jamal, this is what we also know. When a head coach says, go and get me the number one player, that assistant coach knows I got to go get the player, because who is the one who's only making $150,000 or $200,000? The assistant coach. Who is the one making $3 and $4 and $5 million? The head coach. And the head coach knows if I don't go get the top ball players, if I don't play this game, I can't keep getting my big salary. So the assistant coaches are the ones who are having their careers destroyed and going to jail because they understand how the game is played. Jamal, your final comment.
No, I totally agree with that. And I also think that a lot of these black assistant coaches, they're used as recruiters. They're not, there are different assistant coaches. Some assistant coaches help with the defense, so they help develop the players. But a lot of times these black assistant coaches are strictly there to do this, to work in recruiting and work in the seedy business of recruiting because they can, because they.
He gonna finish. Go ahead, Jamal.
Right, because people think that that's all they can do, relate to these black kids who are playing the game. They're not truly given a chance to really work and climb up the ladder and become head coaches, as is represented in the numbers. Like I said, 56% of assistant coaches are black. Only 17% of the head coaches are black. There's an issue there.
And again, what you also see, if you are a top black head coach in basketball, let's say at one of the SWAC schools or one of the HBCUs, isn't it amazing how you never get a call from one of the larger universities? Jamal Murphy with the Undefeated. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, Scott, you can finish your whining.
Not whining. What does any of that, to your listening audience, what does any of that have to do whether I'm in a position to commit a crime or not? If I commit that crime,
it's called collegiate sharecropping.
Oh, what are you, an apologist for
no,
crime
committers? No. What I am is somebody who understands big time. What I understand is somebody who understands big time college athletics. And I understand it's a multi-billion-dollar game. And what I understand is when the coach says, go get them, he means go get them by any means necessary. Julian, final comment.
So what?
But all I have to say is that
Julian, final comment.
The bottom line here is that, as you say, college athletics is a profit center for these colleges. I think that they're all complicit. I think that some of the presidents are complicit. Frankly, as a former president, I would say, you know what's going on your campus. And, you know.
I'm at the University of Maryland, so I'm not going to say anything right now.
Well, hell, University, you ain't lying.
You can't say nothing.
What does that have to do?
Given
all right, folks.
A crime.
All right, folks.
Are you kidding me?
Bottom line is here. Bottom line is y'all.
You are myopic. You are myopic. You are totally
for committing crime.
No, that is not the case.
What I'm an apologist for is when you have the little guy paying, you have the little guy paying the price for the big guy. That's my problem.
That's the issue.
It's called sharecropping. It's called sharecropping in college sports. All right, y'all. I'm gonna go to my next story. The Westboro Baptist Church, designated by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group, has announced plans to protest at the upcoming commencement ceremonies for Spelman College, Morehouse College, and Clark Atlanta University. And the church is located in Topeka, Kansas. They've got a well-documented history of organizing hateful protests, which is why they're classified as a hate group and are monitored by the FBI.
Roland, these people are infamous for boycotting funerals. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, our mutual friend Cora Masters' Berry mom passed. They were at the funeral. They passed out these flyers that were utterly hateful because Tommy Masters, Cora's brother, is the mayor of West Palm Beach, Florida. He had just passed a piece of legislation asserting gay rights. They hate gay people, and their reasons for boycotting Morehouse, Spelman, and AU Center have to do with, I think Morehouse has just passed a policy about transsexual students or transgender students. Spelman has done something similar. AUC has a guy there who's gay. But they are crazy people. The funny thing about them, however, is these protests, they pass out these flyers at Dr. Isabel Masters' funeral. It was about 10 little scraggly-looking white boys. I mean, so the security we had serious security.
Right.
This was not happening. It was, the security. I just say something.
And it's a handful of these nuts.
But I want them to say something to the wrong brother at Morehouse. That's
Jason.
all I want.
The one thing
is Spelman.
Oh no, getting away with Black Pants trying to get to that graduation. Jason, go ahead.
I want to move that we stop calling them Westboro Baptist Church because they're neither Baptist nor a church. Right. They're just the Westboro hate organization or whatever we want to call them. But they are not in any way thinking about, they just like to throw the word God in there, but they are not a church.
Ain't no God in nothing they do.
Yeah, they're just a hate organization. And they want cameras and they want attention. And
that's all they want.
That's all that they really.
All right, Scott, go.
God sent the shooter. Wow. And that's religious.
I told you they're nuts.
Religion. Here's the deal. I don't know why America and the Constitution allow us to have hate groups in America or gangs in America. There is no right to free speech that connotes violence or hatred Why don't we just shut down every hate group and every urban gang in America, regardless of why they are?
You have to shut down 1600 Pennsylvania
Avenue. If you
Avenue.
are hateful, if you are violent, you have no right to operate, and you can infringe on their constitutional rights and the First Amendment any day of the week, like we do any other time or any other law in this country.
I was with you until urban gangs. I think that that's a lot more complex.
It may be.
We can do that
It's hate group.
Hate group.
Whether it's
Jason, finish, please. Scott, you talked long enough.
Yeah, no, there have been, people who's going to classify someone as an urban gang. We
can name them.
There were
we
people.
can name them.
Kappas.
We can name them.
Kappas.
Violence, drugs, gang symbols.
There were people
gang
who
insignias.
if you had left it up to the government, they would have said the Black Panthers were an urban gang. There are people who
I wouldn't classify that.
Hell, they you wouldn't have, but they would have called the NCAA a gang.
Black Panthers.
Right.
Yes, they would have.
Did a whole
All right,
lot
y'all.
of good
I
in
gotta
this
go.
country.
The
Go
black
ahead.
identity extremists. That lets you know who we do not want defining. When the FBI says
Exactly.
the black identity, everybody on this panel is a black identity extremist. If the whole truth is to be
All day.
That's
All right, y'all. New video shows Texas police racially profiling a black dad who was playing basketball with his small children in front of his home. It's called The Next Story. Stop talking, Scott. It turns out the cops had the wrong damn guy. Y'all, this video is unbelievable. It took place in Harris County, which is, of course, where Houston is. Press play.
Oh,
He don't even know my name and tell him I have a warrant.
What did he do?
That's what I'm saying.
For what?
For what?
I'm from Louisiana.
For what?
For what?
Yeah. I don't even live in Louisiana, so how would I have a... You don't know my name, so how can you tell me I have an open warrant in Louisiana?
Sir, stop.
Clarence,
Calvary coming.
Okay, well, you
No,
know
you
You don't even know me.
I already got you.
No, you don't even know
Sir.
me. You don't even know my name. Why would I trust you?
Hello. I'm confused. He don't even live in Louisiana.
No. You don't. How can you tell me I have something and you don't know my name? You just pulled up in front of my house and then I don't trust because you shaking like you scared or something.
Okay.
I don't trust you. You shaking like you scared.
He don't live in
No,
Louisiana.
I don't even live in Louisiana. How the hell would I have a warrant in Louisiana?
Quentin, you already said your name was that.
My name is not Quentin. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Put your hand by your
Nah,
Sir,
fuck
his
that.
name is
My
not
name
Quentin.
Is not fucking Quentin.
Then let's see the ID and we'll be done. Okay, hold on.
You told me three different names. You woke up here and told me three different names.
Hold on.
That's the third name you just... No.
Clint.
Fuck that. No, I'm not finna be the next nigga you feel. Fuck
No.
that.
Let me see your
You
ID.
think I'm from because I got grants or something?
No.
You just pulled up in front of my fucking house and told me I got a warrant in Louisiana. So what? That's my fucking dog.
That's our dog. That's our dog.
Go in the house. Look, man.
Sir, that's our
I don't
dog.
want you touching me while you shaking. You need to step back and calm down. No, fuck that.
Sir, his name is not Quentin. That's our dog.
You just told me three different names. You pulled up on some bullshit talking about I got a stolen dog. My dog is chipped.
That's
I got
our
a chip in
yes,
my dog.
we
I
have
got dogs since he was
papers.
born.
We-
Okay.
Let me see the ID.
And then you talking about some shit in Louisiana, then you say my name is Quentin. My name is not no fucking Quentin. I'm not telling you my name, but it's not Quentin. I'm not telling you my last
You have
name.
the units come here and put your hands behind your back then, okay?
No, fuck that.
Sir. Oh my God. Sir, who are you looking
stop, man,
for?
because you say I
Get my phone out of the car.
There you got him running.
Get my phone out of the
Calm
car.
Calm down. Man, fuck this
Let me
shit.
show you this.
Please calm down.
Who are you looking for?
Fucking me?
Yes, I want to. I want to do this so we're done and over with. Okay? Okay?
Okay, well, you shaking and you
No, you're pulling on me, so just, okay. Right here, we're good. Okay. Here's the deal. Doesn't that look a lot like you?
No, don't look like
That's
me.
not
What the fuck
him.
is wrong with you, man?
Calm down.
What you trying to say? Because I got glasses and I'm black, that's me?
No.
That's not him. You fucking, she can see that's not me from
Oh
over
my
there.
God. Head.
No,
Your ID.
what?
Stop. We got no problem.
My name, you ain't got no problem with shit. You ain't, man, fuck
No,
that shit.
please
Look,
stop.
it's gonna take
Stop.
two of y'all. It's gonna take both of
Please
you.
stop. Please leave him alone, please.
Look,
No, please, that is not him. Please leave him alone.
Man, get out my yard,
I need to do a
man.
report on this. I need to do a report.
No, you need to get the fuck out of my yard. You just said I'm somebody named Queen.
Oh,
You got grands and he black.
Come on.
What the fuck is that shit?
Okay, come on.
Nah, fuck that.
Okay.
But now you want to leave, right?
Okay, I'm trying to understand. How are you... Okay, first of all, the officer tried to say that he stopped because of the man's dog. As if, I guess, black men can't have dog. Then he said there's a warrant out for his arrest. And then he shows him the photo. Jason, makes total no sense. I mean, the whole video. And the guy's like, so you want to handcuff me? I'm not under arrest. What the hell?
Yeah, I couldn't understand it either. You know, I think we all would agree that a man or a woman's home is their castle. So for
outside the house.
So for him, he was on.
I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. He's outside the house in Texas. Okay, it extends to your property.
Right.
It's not just your house. It extends to your yard as well.
Right.
In fact, if someone even tries in Texas, being a native Texan, don't have to be a lawyer.
You ain't been there in years.
And first of all, steal my homestead, and I pay the property tax on my damn house. In Texas, if somebody tries to steal your vehicle from your home, you can legally shoot them in your driveway because that is your property on your property. Go ahead.
Right. No, I mean that's his property. He was not committing a crime or doing anything. For them to come up and all of a sudden physically grab him.
He put his hands on it.
Hold on.
Can I go?
Hold up.
He didn't ask for,
Hold up. He did not. He did not. No.
But he grabbed him.
He did not.
They have every right to do that.
He did not.
No, you don't have the right to put your hands on
right to do what?
All right, yeah. What do you have the right to do?
You could run that video and
You have the right to do what?
Deck by deck
Go.
on this. Okay? Look at the video.
No. Talk.
No, talk. Okay.
We saw the video.
So, it's a reasonable stop.
How?
They
Why?
did not handcuff. Hold on.
Hold on. How? No, I'm asking. How is it a reasonable stop?
They had a warrant.
They didn't have a warrant on him.
No, they didn't have a warrant.
Because of the dog.
No. Hold up. Let me walk you
Can I
through.
say- no.
They stopped because of his dog.
Great. Whatever.
So what's the reason?
Whatever the violation.
You can't have a
It
dog?
was not a violation.
If the dog
They
in most
stopped because he was a
jurisdictions-
black man with some dreads.
That's what you want to think.
No,
No, go ahead.
Whether it was the dog that may have been unleashed, whatever the regulation is, here's the deal. The police have a right, if they believe that possible criminal conduct is afoot. Possible. Hold on.
What was possible?
Hold on.
Are you
Hold
trolling
on.
for speeches for the policemen's union?
I
He is
finished. That's
trolling
not
for
why they
speeches for the
stopped
policemen's
him.
union, Roland. That's what he's doing.
You can't learn much on this show because people talk versus listen. What I'm trying to say to you through the video is, even if the stop was for a wrong reason, they can reasonably stop you. They asked him for ID. They said they had a warrant. He wanted to argue, and he did argue.
Because they said his name was
vehemently.
Quentin. He
Hold
said
on.
his name wasn't Quentin.
Okay, but you ain't going to resolve that with the police on the street like that. And you know what? They left. When he gave him the ID and they looked at the picture of the warrant, which
And they did not apologize.
When the cop came back, and when the second cop came and they showed him, it was clearly not him. He's going off yelling and cursing at him.
Let me ask again. No. First of all, I'm not going to hold on because it's my show.
Because that's what he did, though.
Let me ask
But
again.
Scott, you
No,
very
wait.
reasonable.
Let me ask again.
The brother was wrong.
What?
Had
No,
showed
the
him
brother
the
was
ID,
not wrong.
they would have got on their way.
What was
Lucky he didn't
what
count
was
for taking
reasonable
this
about
being
the stop?
unreasonable. They didn't have probable cause.
No, they had no cause.
Hold on. But they're learning. If
They
you can
didn't
see
have-
from the video, they're learning it as they get there.
No.
No.
As
They started with the dog. They started with the dog.
They
To the law.
shifted. They shipped. This is what they did.
You know what?
They did the same
You know what?
thing. Hold
In
up.
most jurisdictions,
No.
the cop can stop you and ask you
No,
for ID.
actually,
And you-
no,
at most.
no.
At
Hold
most
up.
they
First of
can.
all, that's most. But the
Okay.
law also says that unless I am under arrest, I do not have to give them my ID.
Not true. And by the way, a reasonable stop.
Where?
I don't have to
What's
be on the arrest.
reasonable?
Hold
This
on.
is not reasonable.
Julian,
Scott.
go ahead.
It's
You don't-
unreasonable. This man
I can reasonably detain you whether
Scott,
you committed a crime or
I
not.
ain't talking, babe. So now here's the deal.
I want you to listen.
I was
this is
listening
the
to you,
law.
but it didn't make any sense.
Well, you can't
So
learn about the
therefore-
law if you talking.
I'm not trying to learn about the law in this case. I'm trying to learn about why this black man, enjoying his yard on a nice day, has these popo roll up on him for no reason, roll up on him with this bogus nonsense about the dog. Then they go from the dog to the warrant in Louisiana. Is it the dog or the warrant in Louisiana? And as the woman said, you
And
heard
the
the
only
voice.
one yelling and screaming was him. The only one cursing was him.
Let me
Police
say
were
this.
very
Hold
Guess
up.
what?
One
Because
second.
the level of
Hold
trust in our
on.
community has been eroded.
Getting angry
Hold on.
is not a crime.
One second.
Or
One
I'm
second.
so you write down.
One second.
You would be
One
arrested if
second.
Scott
That could've been
Bolden.
a
One
2-minute
second.
stop, show the ID,
One
and they're out of
second.
there.
Allow
Stop
me.
it.
Allow me to
People
read
need
this
to
here.
take
I'm sorry.
responsibility for themselves.
Allow
You
me
need to
to
act
read
like
this.
Yes, people need to take responsibility.
Hold up.
Scott,
And this black person is going to read this here. There's no requirement to provide information in any particular form, such as a license or identification card in Texas. If you are not under arrest, you do not have to identify yourself. If you are being detained, but not under arrest, in Texas,
Here we go.
you do not have to show an ID. That is Texas law.
If there's a warrant issue, they can reasonably detain
No, you did not. No. Scott, two things. He was not under arrest. He was not detained.
And they had a warrant.
They did not have a warrant.
For somebody else.
In another state.
Wait, hold on. Scott, you obviously did not read your packet. They said there was a warrant for some other man in Louisiana.
Yes.
That they were not in possession of a warrant for that guy.
And they investigated it. And they can detain you to investigate.
And he did not have to show his ID.
He's not the person.
Wait.
It was malice and it was
myopic on this, guys.
It was
myopic.
malice and it was
that
racist.
brother drove the whole narrative.
No, he did not drive it down.
When he drove the whole narrative.
His business
the police were reasonable too.
I don't think they were reasonable. He had his hand on it. No, you do not put your hand on somebody.
If you're investigating, he could be detained.
But you don't put your hand on
lawyers are on the panel.
Allow me to say this. First of all, hold on. First of all, how many Texans on the panel?
Well, I spent some time in Texas.
No. How many Texans on the panel?
You ain't from Texas.
I'm sorry. How many folks are born and raised in Texas? How many folks? I'm sorry. How many are still registered to vote in Texas? How many pay homestead taxes in Texas?
I mean, you know
how many still? So here's what I do know. As a Texan, the law says if you are not under arrest and being detained, you do not have to show your ID. The brother was correct. He did not have... One second. And here's the second thing. The reason why they are investigating the officers, because the officers' story changed.
Yes.
And this is no different than what took place with Sandra Bland, where the Texas Department of Public Safety trooper was looking for a reason. We have the video of him being in the car, talking to a supervisor, trying to figure out what he could charge her with because he had no real reason to do so. That's what you have going on right there in Texas. And so Scott can sit here and spin it all he wants to, but that's fine. All right, y'all. Let me deal with. Before I go, let me show y'all this crazy ass white woman. Roll it, please.
No charcoal grills are allowed.
I'm white. I got you, huh?
Illegally selling water without a permit
On my property.
Whoa! Hey!
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
All right, y'all. So Michael Hancock, he is the mayor of Denver. He's African American. Actually running against him for mayor. This was an interview that she did. It was on the page of this guy, Brother Jeff, from his Facebook page. And she was being interviewed by this sister. This went about as well as one can expect.
Do you know about the NAACP? Just clear that for the people that you know about the NAACP.
Absolutely.
Okay. What does it mean?
National African American.
Oh.
You gonna test me on this?
Yeah. It's important because it's our people. We want to know if you're connected to the people. And I know the NAACP is a big branch out here that does, that informs the black
advocacy and absolutely.
And just the people want to know, do you know what they do in the NAACP? And you don't have to give any specifics about the name change, but what they stand for, I think, is an important part of the question.
Well, they do advocacy and for the African American community. They talk about policy. They talk about.
I don't know. Yeah. Y'all, she wasn't asked to name SNCC or CORE or NUL, National Urban League. She wasn't. Y'all, she was asked about the NAACP. Now,
founded in 1909.
No, but here's the deal. If you white, if there is one group, okay, if there's a gun to your head and they name one black group you know about, NAACP is probably the easiest one for you to name. You can call it NAACP, NAACP. Take your pick.
The NAA.
She clearly ain't got no clue, Jason, what the hell NAACP is.
And actually, I would debate whether you could even call the NAACP a black group. I mean, it's always been mixed. It's always had white members. By white people. You know, founded by,
white and black people.
White and black people. Yeah, they had, white money involved. So, I mean, the whole thing is, for her not to know that group, the most historic group that we have, is really troubling for somebody who wants to run for mayor of an urban city.
That woman was amusing. I mean, she truly was amusing. Roland, I don't know where you get these crazy-ass white people from, but I don't know.
We got them on video.
We got them on video.
But
I just roll tape.
Well, I don't know where you get the tape from, but obviously that woman should not be running for anything but her life.
Let me ask the panel this, if I may. Let me ask the panel. Should that disqualify her from running for mayor?
Hell yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell
it should.
Hell yeah.
Right. She doesn't get a second chance on that.
Hell no.
Second chance? What's wrong with you?
Read up on the NAACP and come back.
You must have taken, your white people pills today. When you came in here, I mean, first you want to defend the
I didn't say she should be able to run.
Hey, y'all,
I said it was a question.
If we were in court,
does that disqualify
sustained.
her? I want a motion for reconsideration.
Denied.
Anything else you got?
Appeals.
Denied.
I hold your ass in contempt.
Yeah, you go on to the Supreme Court. Maybe Uncle Clarence got something for you.
Exactly.
He don't talk.
Exactly.
No, but he'll point.
All right. I think it's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, yeah. And
Run
so
for
no,
the mayor
she don't get no second chance. Nope. We don't care. We don't care nothing she do. It don't matter. And I'm just saying, if you need to know one, know that one.
Right.
You know?
That'll save you any kind of heartache. But
and she obviously didn't even know where she was going. Who was interviewing her?
They've got advocacy.
Voter registration.
She didn't say that.
No, she didn't say that.
She went policy.
What policy?
I don't know what the hell else they do.
And she was highly amusing. That's all I have to say.
All right, y'all.
Thank you for the laugh, Roland.
Look, I mean, that's why we got crazy. That's why people say they do what they do. So, all right, y'all. Today is the Founders Day for Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boule, founded May 15th, 1904 in Philadelphia. Go to my iPad, the logo's right there. And so shout out to all the archons, members of Sigma Pi Phi. Scott's one of them.
Epsilon chapter.
Don't ask, I don't know why.
Epsilon Boule, rather, forgive me.
All right, whatever.
What's your Boule?
The high wishes.
So there we go. So again, congratulations on today's Founders Day. All right, y'all, first of all, I want to thank our panel, but coming up next, though, I got an interview with Reverend Dr. Alyn E. Waller. He is the author of the book, The Code of the Righteous Warrior, 10 Laws of Moral Manhood for an Uncertain World. I need to just give Scott this book. After today's segment, that was shameful.
I've been a warrior all my life, brother.
So I look forward to having this conversation. Don't forget, if you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Scott still hasn't given. He's been lying for 6 months. He ain't wrote jack. So again, y'all can support us. Support via Cash App, PayPal, or even Square, or go to the website. We certainly want you to do so. Every dollar you give, of course, goes to support a great show. All right, folks, I'll see you tomorrow. But here's my conversation with Reverend Waller. All right, Reverend Dr. Alyn Waller, The Code of the Righteous Warrior, 10 Laws of Moral Manhood for an Uncertain World. Let's get right into this book. First and foremost, when we talk about a moral world, we're living in a world now where you have a president who people on the right call this great Christian and one of the most Christian folks, whatever, who repeatedly lies, who attacks people. He attacks women. He trashes people. And so how do we operate when we talk about living in an uncertain world, having moral manhood, when the President of the United States, frankly, is somebody who, frankly, does not qualify for what you're describing?
You're exactly right, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of this conversation. That's exactly why I want to talk about what it means to be a righteous warrior. What does moral manhood look like? And it's the basics. What I've tried to do is take from my Christian experience, my martial arts experience, and my athletics experience, and derive principles of decency. And this is not coming from someone who sits on top of a mountain having done everything right, but someone who's sort of lived life. And I want to talk to people about making right choices. I want to talk to people about, a righteous warrior is a man who loves God, loves himself, loves his family, and wants to make a difference in the world. And I wanted to add my voice to the conversation. You and I have grown up. We've seen Promise Keepers, Million Man March stuff. It's not that I'm trying to do that, but I am trying to say that beyond the stadiums and crowds, there's some basic things that people ought do to make this world a better place. And that's what I'm trying to do with this book.
And when you talk about that, as you were talking, I think about when I hear these phrases, toxic masculinity. I had someone I had a woman who once said, "Oh, you're hyper masculine," and I told her, I said, "Well, I am who I am. I am a man," and so I said, "So what exactly is it about me being a man that you have a problem with?" And it was a very interesting conversation because on one hand, we have folks who say we want men to be men. Mm-hmm. And you say the code of a righteous warrior, but then others who would say, "Oh no, but that's hyper masculinity." And so what do you think about the phrases that are being thrown around to describe men today, where you're sort of like, well, okay, what am I supposed to be? If that's this phrase and that phrase, well, what am I, and how am I supposed to operate and act in this world?
That's exactly right. Well, and I take up that issue around, even men talking to younger men. I find that talking to some millennial men, my definition of manhood, or what I was raised with, I'm 55 years old, they would call toxic masculinity. But I try to frame the conversation to suggest that maybe sometimes we who are Christian and far right have messed up the definitions. And even our pictures of Jesus, our understanding of manhood coming out of the church has caused us to have this polarized conversation. I want to suggest things like this. My theology of self-defense comes from Jesus Christ himself. I believe that Jesus was not necessarily a pacifist, he was a pragmatist. If you read the scriptures, you'll see that Jesus was dealing with aggression 3 times, and 3 times he chose different things. One time he ran away. One time he stood and fought for his Father's house. And another time, for the good of all of us, he let the other side win. A real man understands which one of those should be used at what time. Sometimes it's best to walk away. Sometimes it's best to stand and fight. Sometimes you let the other side win. Your relationship with God should inform those decisions. And so it's that type of conversation that I'm trying to push forward in this book, to think about what does it mean to fight. Some would argue that fighting is only with our fists, but we have to bring a different type of understanding of manhood and strength that is beyond brute strength, but it is stick-to-itiveness, it is character, and that's what a righteous warrior is.
Oh, and I think also when we talk about when we talk about this notion of manhood, it is a question of redefining it, because, like for instance, we were raised all like the man is the one who goes out and makes the most money and who is the earner. But the reality is, you might be in a situation where your wife is making more than you. That doesn't mean that oh my goodness, that's a bad thing. I'm no longer being a man. It's just the reality that that's what she's making. I don't get caught up and hung up in that. The problem is when people then begin to somehow say I'm less than a man because of that. So they are now defining their manhood through the basis of who makes how much money, which to me is the stupidest thing in the world, because my philosophy is my money is your money is my money, and our money is our money.
That's exactly right. But also the root of that argument comes from what I think is a misunderstanding of a basic Christian doctrine of the headship argument. While I have that argument, what normally has happened is head has been defined as boss or head has been defined using the Greek word arche, which means over. When the scriptures talks about head in terms of kephale, which is source, which has to do with being a strength, a support, a good partner, which goes more into what you're defining as shared power and not over power. And so I try to push that because you'll notice on the book, I say I want to take up that conversation. A generation ago, we might assume that a man could marry and then his salary alone take care of the family. We don't even live in that economic reality anymore. Right. For a young couple today to make it, they both need to work. And we need to affirm the humanity of our sisters, affirm their gift. I think we need to debunk the old theological perspectives that kept women off to the side, not preaching, not serving, not leading, and recognize that them being elevated and supported in the fullness of their humanity does not in any way take away from real masculinity. And that's what a righteous warrior understands.
Well, also, I would dare say when we talk about this notion, again, as I look at the chapter, even when you talk about being a family man, to me, the notion of being a righteous warrior, forget, again, who makes what. And again, I've been in the situation where I've made more money. My wife has made more money. I'm still the same person. I think what we have to do is teach men to understand what spiritual covering means. And so we talk about being spiritual leadership, looking to you to be a spiritual leader and not get caught up in even this idea of roles. I remember there was a woman who told my wife, she said, I can't believe you take out the trash and you get tires rotated. And my wife was like, okay, first of all, calm the hell down. He cooks and cleans. And so she said, so, and I got no problem with him cooking and cleaning. And again, so for this woman, her view of a man was, oh no, a man takes the trash out. A man gets the oil change and gets the tires changed. Well, my wife loves that stuff. I can't stand that stuff. I'm busy doing some other stuff. But she's saying, but hold up, wait a minute, but he also cooks and cleans. And so again, I think part of this deal, we have gotten so trapped into these roles as opposed to
that's right.
Do the dishes get washed? Do the clothes get cleaned? Do the tires get changed? Do the oil get changed? Trash get taken out? I don't care who does it, as long as it get done.
Exactly. That's literally what I'm trying to argue in the book, but also getting people to understand that throughout the book, I challenge men to their unique role, their unique person. Who are you as a person? So I try to argue that when I think of my
Actually, hold on 1 second. So, because it actually broke up there. So let's start with your answer again. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the authenticity is what really we're looking for instead of old roles. Who are you as a person? And in the family man discussion, I try to argue that a generation ago, when someone asked you, are you a family man, what they meant was, are you married? What I argue in this is we're family men whether we're married or not. Mm-hmm. You cannot define your whole self outside of relationship to others. But that doesn't mean you have to be married. I think for a long time we defined you weren't grown until you were married. But even if you're not married, you're someone's son, you're someone's brother, you're someone's uncle, you're someone's cousin. And the fruit of your manhood should be seen in how you are related and how you fit in the larger relational nexus in your family and in your community. So in that, I argue that understanding yourself, understanding how you fit as a relational being with others is what a real righteous warrior is.
All right, then. Well, look, we certainly appreciate it. The book is called The Code of the Righteous Warrior, 10 Laws of Moral Manhood for an Uncertain World. Reverend Waller, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very, very much.
Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.